Neysun Mahboubi joins me from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He's a research scholar at the Center for the Study of Contemporary China at the University of Pennsylvania. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So, Neysun, after a rocky start, the diplomats got down to business. What's your overall impression of the talks?
Well, of course, the first night, the reporting from last night indicated that it was a very eventful first public meeting. I tend to have a more sanguine attitude towards it. I think both sides were probably prepared for it to be, at least performatively confrontational, and they both played their roles. And then the doors closed, and then they had their private talks. The message that Secretary of State Blinken just delivered that we just heard does indicate that the temperature probably was a little bit lower in the private talks. But of course, I agree with Nathan, your correspondent just now, that we don't really know what the deliverables are. That will take some time to see as they try to sketch out this new relationship, which will have obviously a mix of competitive and cooperative dimensions.
So, Neysun, from the language of that final press briefing you brought up, how would you say both sides left things? Any movement at all? Any compromise? Any progress?
I think it's much too early for that. I think, it's the new administration on the U.S. side has just come into place. I think this was really just kind of a getting to know you, underscoring from the U.S. side what are some major points that are important for the new administration, getting the response from the Chinese side. I think whether there will be actual progress on some of the cooperative possibilities, I think that we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out. But certainly some lines have been staked out by both sides on some of the more competitive dimensions.
And one of the early points made by the Chinese delegation is that the United States does not speak on behalf of the world, and U.S. values shouldn't be imposed on them either. A very strong statement. What are your thoughts?
That was one of those statements that, I can't remember that was in the most prepared part of Yang Jiechi's remarks or later, but clearly both sides, including Yang Jiechi, came in with some, I think, workshopped lines to present to the other. I think that the U.S. perspective is that to one of humility about some of the failings of the U.S., but also one of confidence about the enduring appeal of the values that the U.S. stands for. And so I think Secretary of State Blinken especially, and also National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan did a fairly good job of conveying that mix of qualities of both the humility of understanding some failings that the U.S. has to work on, but also an abiding confidence in the values that we stand for.
Now, so the Chinese foreign minister ended by saying Beijing is willing to adopt an open attitude with the United States. How optimistic are you that this dialogue in Alaska can pave the way for warmer ties?
What honestly gives me the most confidence is that at the end of the day, the U.S. and China are the world's two largest economies, and they both have their own interests in some degree of global stability. So I think that is ultimately going to be a much more important ballast for the relationship than anything that is specifically said to each other in these meetings. There is going to be lots of areas of confrontation and growing. We know that. But, the world's a complicated place. There's lots of exogenous things that none of us can predict, that both sides, whether it be something like the COVID crisis or the financial crisis from 2008, lots of things can happen that I think will push the sides to work out areas where they can work together, more so than anything they might say to each other in a meeting.
Interesting days ahead. Neysun Mahboubi, thank you so much for your insight.